I'm Fernando Mastrangelo, and this is The Path, an interview series that uncovers the business of being an artist. People don't like to think of art as a business. And you know what? I get it. It kind of kills the romance of it. But that's not really realistic anymore. We're trying to grow. We're asking new sets of questions. We're using social media to expand our audience and even get new clients. So we're going to uncover some of the mysteries and strategies behind some of the most successful people in the field today. I want to share those with you so you can really see what it takes to build a successful studio. Eny Lee Parker was deemed the breakout American design star of 2017 by Sight Unseen. I first saw her work this year at ICFF, and I was super impressed by these terracotta lamps that she makes. I started following her on Instagram and also became impressed by how she's been branding and storytelling. I wanted to sit down with her because she's moved up quickly in her career, and I wanted to see how she's been managing it all. Eny makes ceramic furniture, lighting, and jewelry. She's got a unique style that has its own language, and it's distinctly becoming hers. I'm excited to share this interview since we covered a lot of ground and you really get a sense of Eny's path. Let's jump in right now. All right, Eny, thank you so much for doing this. I'm really excited about interviewing you because you're, okay, as you know Sean Santiago, he said that you were basically the designer of the millennial generation. Do you remember this?
No, where? Wait.
Sight Unseen.
Oh.
So the title of his article was like Eny Lee Parker, basically the new voice of the millennial generation for design and fashion, which is interesting to me because that's kind of a bold statement.
Yeah, it's a lot of pressure.
Yeah, a lot of pressure. Piggybacked on your New York Times article from 2017. So I kind of want to start there with you because from what I can sort of gather, this is the moment where things started to change for you. I mean, you had success even as an undergrad in Savannah. You were getting press, you were doing interesting things, you got a great scholarship. So there was already some notoriety around you. And then Sight Unseen happens, and I feel like that's where where things changed.
Yeah, I was actually in grad school.
You're in grad school? Okay,
yeah, I was in grad. I did undergrad in interior design.
Right.
And I went back for furniture for my master's. And I was still in school when I did Sight Unseen. I was like finishing up, literally finished.
So this is almost like your thesis exhibition, almost.
My thesis exhibition was actually January this year.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Which, yeah, it's nuts. So I did my MA and I did an artist residency, and the school came back and they were so kind and they were like, if you would like to finish and work on your thesis. And the only reason why I didn't want to do my thesis was because I hate writing. And I was like, I really don't want to do this. But if it's, if I'm getting the scholarship, obviously I'm going to take it. So that's when I completed it and then finished my thesis.
So now you're officially a master of ceramics, furniture.
Of furniture, yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And so, all right, so take me back a little bit to how this all unfolded for you, because it seems like it's just been a sort of a storm of things just happening very quickly for you. And, I think it started also from grad school when you started recording things online. You started to sort of use stories and Instagram and social media to sort of just be out there, right? I mean, tell me the story, because I think it's interesting for a lot of the people who are watching.
Well, so I went to SCAD, which is in Savannah, Georgia. It's we don't have like a huge, it's like a slow city. So I learned really quickly to document. Like I saw the importance of documenting and being able to share all my work via internet. Because that's where you're gonna get the chance to get like thousands of people to look at your work. So I did that very early on. Well, early on, like as in when I started grad school. I made sure like every project that I did, I could photograph, submit to like anything that was like around, and somehow like if press happened, that's like where I think I understood like, oh, this is the way to go. Is like making not only like well-designed pieces, but editorial pieces. Right.
So what would you do? Would you set up your grad studio with a situation where you could photograph things nicely, and how would you do it?
No, I think that it was a bit of a collaboration. I would find photography students and we would scout locations, and SCAD also has like a photo studio that you could rent it out and go and take your pieces. So
how did you know to do that so early on?
I got a scholarship. So the first piece like that I made, the first furniture that I made was a chair, and we photographed it. I loved the process. It was my first baby, and I was so excited. So we documented, and I applied for a scholarship, and through the scholarship I got like a little bit of press, and I was like, wait, and that's like when it clicked. I was like, wait a second, I could, you know, do this every time,
Right.
because you're taking 3 classes a quarter and you have to make something. Like, that's a lot of work.
Absolutely.
So I mean, that's how it started.
It's cool because you have to actually realizing that early on is probably what's helped you get to the point where you are right now.
Yeah.
So then tell me about Sight Unseen, that show.
I think I was really lucky. I think the right people saw my work at the right time. The right people, meaning like Monica and Jill. They saw, I think
Did you apply?
I didn't.
Okay.
They contacted me, and it was through, they saw like some of the work that I had done at an artist residency, and that was the wheel thrown pieces, like tables.
Right.
And they asked me if I was interested in showing, which at the time, because I was in school, I was like, I don't know if I can swing this. But they were so kind and find me like sponsors, and it just facilitated the whole process.
Cool.
And I was like, I would be so stupid not to do this.
Not to do the show.
So I did it. I don't even think they knew that I was in school back then.
Yeah, well,
it was until later. Yeah.
Right. It's you had said somewhere that the business sort of just started to happen on its own in a lot of ways for you. It wasn't that you sort of said, okay, I'm going to set out to start a business. This just sort of evolved for you, right? It was.
Yeah, it was. My dream was to actually, like, if I could get a corporate job. It sounds so
What do you
weird.
mean, right now?
No, like,
oh.
Like my whole thing was like, I want to work for like a corporate, you know, like I want to be in a team. I want to have a good boss. I want to like have benefits. I want to go like 9 to like 6.
Okay.
And like, that was kind of like my idea, like in school.
Yeah.
And it didn't happen. And after Sight Unseen, people were emailing about pricing, and I was like, oh, it like, I guess it clicked. I was like, I need to come up with like cost, and I need to like figure out how to make this stuff. I need to like, you know, so that's kind of what I mean when it just kind of slowly happened. Was I guess I didn't get it at that time that I was showing at a trade show. Right. To me, it was just a show.
Sure.
Because when you're in
Did
school,
you understand the scope of what it's like Sight Unseen provides, what their position is in the scope of contemporary design? Did you know that about them when you?
I followed, like I would read their blogs, like I would, or I guess posts. I was like pretty much like in check, but the whole scene of like design in New York felt so like far away, being in the South, that I felt like, I don't know, it's just, there's a disconnect there. Yeah. And it kind of felt unreal, like coming and showing and then realizing, oh, this is what people do for a living. Like maybe, you know, it could work.
So you put the booth up. You have expectations. What are your feelings, right? As you put the booth up, you're like, well, let's just see what happens, kind of thing?
No, I like to prepare. I like to make the renderings and like model and get organized. I was really nervous because you showed there too.
I have many years. Yeah, that's where I launched my company.
Yeah, so
my furniture company.
Monica and Jill like had emails like, we don't want the space to be blank. We want you to like create like a scene,
an environment.
Yeah.
Which with your interior design skills or
it was
degree,
a lot of fun, but it was also, I was so nervous because I was like, I don't know anyone who's showing, so I don't know what to expect and like what level I'm supposed to go. And I was like, and I also don't have any money. Like I'm like, where am I gonna, you know, do all of this?
You're still a student.
Yeah. So I got like carpet towels donated, like made everything in-house. And I just like decided to, I don't know, try to do as much as I could like at the school.
Yeah, of course.
And we just like U-Haul that and just hope for the best. Honestly, I was just like, I don't know what's gonna happen, but we'll see.
Yeah. Well, okay, so you do the show. things turned out pretty well. I mean, immediately after you started to get some bigger press, like right away.
Yeah, the press is really good. Sales, not so much. I didn't have my shit together.
Okay. You can curse.
Okay. So I got like really great, feedback from the community and from press.
At this point, did you have your website, PDFs, all that stuff ready for the time you launched the site?
I was working on it.
Okay.
Like as soon as like I realized like maybe a week before, I have a mentor like in business that she was like, you need to have a line sheet. And I was like,
Yes.
I don't even have pricing from the fabricators yet.
Sure.
So it was just so hectic. And I just remember feeling like, I don't know if this is going to work. And getting the press is like really great. But also the whole term of like fake it until you make it.
Yeah.
It was, I mean, that's like as real as it gets. I was like really faking it. I was like trying so hard. And I was like, I mean, I'm getting this great and people are emailing, but I just like there's like still like
and
this.
you're obviously, you're still by yourself, you're a student and you're figuring out how to answer the emails, get the price. Okay.
Yeah.
So give me an example of the pricing situation, right? How did you even come up with your pricing? How you were like, my hours, time. I mean, a lot of people struggle with this. We struggled so much with pricing. Right at the beginning, pricing went like, trying to find the right place, right? Because you don't want to overcharge, you want to be the... So how did you finally settle on some pricing?
So in the beginning, my friend and mentor, Katie, she like was in the furniture business for a little bit and she has her own furniture. She was so kind and she shared her Excel sheet. Okay. Where you plug it in everything you can.
Nice.
And she also shared the factories that she worked with for like upholstery and like getting like metal made. And they were in North Carolina.
I see. And
I tried so hard. I like went to the factories, like we got things like prototypes made and it just was not working. Like I looked at my design, I plugged it in, and here was the price. And it was like a good price. It was like maybe $3,000 for a pair, like 2 chairs.
Yep.
But in my head, I looked at the price and I saw the whole process and then I looked at the design and I was like, something is off. It's like not quite working.
Right, it's not right, yeah.
Yeah. It like looked
So it was a gut feeling. You were basically like,
yeah,
right.
I don't think this is like, and the idea of like having to go to North Carolina, drive to North Carolina just to get those things made was a lot of work.
So logistics also became, it just pricing wise, it wasn't going to work out.
I just like didn't have that relationship with them yet to like just trust that they could create something and then ship it to the client instead of shipping to me for me to like quality check. It was just like,
too many things.
Yeah, it wasn't working out. So I kind of like put those on hold. The metal, like what I call the next collection was like everything was on hold.
And then it seems like, so now then you've really tailored it to what you can do by yourself in studio, which is a lot of this is ceramic, right? I mean, so you kind of like eliminate the process of the other fabricators to sort of facilitate, what you can
Which
do.
I think it's a really great, especially because I'm like, this is my second year.
Yep.
So it's a great way to like learn how to get things done in terms of like from the beginning to end. Yep. So when I got like fed up with the whole process with furniture, what I did was I was like, I'm just gonna make things. I'm gonna make jewelries, like earrings, with my hands. That's like what I'm gonna do. And I started doing that.
Which relates to the fact that you grew up around fashion. You have a huge interest in it as well. But
so my parents like are from that world. They're more like from the cheap fashion of which that was gonna be like what I was gonna study in school. But after a couple summers working in fashion district in LA, I was like, there's no way I'm gonna do this. But I did that and I didn't know what to expect. And I made like a line sheet. I sent out to like, I have like some like fashion like retailers like following on Instagram, and I was like, I'm gonna just try this out.
Sure.
And it worked out, and I really learned how to, the whole wholesale world, like I kind of learned how to do that, and like packaging, like getting,
this is for the jewelry?
Yeah. Right. That was like the first, like, I felt like it was like my small collection that actually I felt like I had a good control of how things happened. And it really helped me scale that up to furniture. I don't know if that makes sense.
It does. No, it makes sense because well, one, you're learning how to interact with the vendors. You're
Right.
figuring out if your margins work out or not.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can scale your process, right? So
Right.
that you can figure out how to actually make a lot of it.
Yeah.
So it does, of course, relate to what you are doing in furniture. It's obviously different because the scale is different. But so you've said also like you want to make furniture with ceramic for a reason, because you kind of want to do like slow design. Is this part of it? And you grew up in Brazil, which I feel like also has some influence on the handmade. Maybe the fact that you're using terracotta, which is a very earthy kind of material, it probably has some influence. I mean, we're not going to dive too deep into that, but I know it has had some influence on you, right? And
yeah. I can't tell like that much, like how much it has affected, because I moved out from Brazil when I was like 13.
Where were you in Brazil?
São Paulo.
In São Paulo.
Yeah. I think it probably has.
It has.
Of course, but I just like don't know exactly what it is about it. There's something really endearing about the culture, the Brazilian culture, because everyone is so open and warm and they just want to have fun and they don't take things too seriously. But
it's one of my favorite countries.
It's fantastic.
My parents lived in São Paulo.
Oh, really?
I did a project for Matthew Barney there in Uachin, and I fell in love with exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
The people, the openness.
Yeah.
It's a very loving, carefree environment. Yeah.
So
I bet we're talking about how it's influenced the ceramics. I mean, because it's to make furniture out of ceramics, it seems it's a little
I know.
Yeah, it's unique. I mean,
it's not like it's kind of the fragility, of it. People are like, they like think twice.
Right.
But like I said, a lot of the things that I've like done so far seems like I just tried it and I just see if it sticks, honestly, because they're just these ideas that I get like, I would love to, I took like a small pottery wheel throwing class. I was like, oh, this would be so cool if I could like make it really large and make it into tables.
Cool. Right.
Whether that works or not, like I'm not gonna know until somebody buys it, you know? So it's been like a lot of those.
You pay attention to like the work that you put out and then seeing how people sort of respond to it.
Yeah, for sure. And the tables, it's so funny. That was like 2017. I did so much of that and I was really into it. And
you're talking about the ones with the pillars, glass tops.
Yes.
Right. So you got the coffee table, you have and you showed 2 or 3 of those at Sight Unseen.
Yeah, right. Okay. And then I hurt my back.
Oh. Okay.
And I was like,
making the bigger stand?
It was like a long process. It was like a bulging disc and I just like was not content with my body and I took a break. And then now that I'm like learning how to use my body and like take care of it and work on these things, I'm getting these orders for tables. And I was like, only if you could have ordered that like when I was really into it, that would have been really great. But it's a learning curve. But what you said about like the slow design, I do enjoy that intimacy of I'm not selling just products, but I'm like selling my time, which I feel like is the highest commodity that we have as individuals. Like that's something that everybody has, and I just value that so much. So for me, being able to create things like us in the studio, and they're handmade, but also they take a little bit of time. So I think there is an importance for me to like make sure telling clients like, there is something really precious about like good things take time sometimes.
Good things take time.
Yeah. So
one of the things that I noticed right away, I think we may have even spoken about this the first time we met. I said, oh, why don't you just make a mold and cast them?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because I see them and I think, oh, wow, they're so easy to mold.
Yeah.
And then I was like, wow, then you can really scale. And then you were like, well, I like the idea of each one being made. You sort of shared what you just shared with me. And I thought, you know what? Yeah, I kind of like that. And I like the idea of valuing your time because, today we're in a phase where like everyone's just thinking about how to scale things. It's like, okay, how do I make 150 of these,
Right.
And you sort of said, no, that's kind of like, that's not what I want to do. And
and I'm not saying that there's nothing wrong with casting. Even casting in ceramic take as much work sometimes because of the cleanup. I love the hand building was my remedy
Hmm.
of my back getting hurt.
I see.
So like just thinking like casting too is like, ooh, that's like a lot of weight on the mold,
That's true.
Um, but the idea of like hand building, there's like a really nice gesture of, bringing it up. And I don't know, there's like something really soothing, and sure, it takes time, but like we said, like I think I find that a little valuable. So
And so now that, we also something that we touched on the first time I met was pricing. Like, how did, not to feel frustrated, right, by how much you end up needing to produce at the prices that you need to produce, like, you have to find what the value of your time is,
right.
essentially, on top of being able to make margins, pay, assistants, or pay your overhead or whatever. So you've been adjusting all of that, right? It's
Yeah.
been
It's
a
a learning
process. It's a
curve.
learning curve. Yeah.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about how it's been a learning curve. I mean, I think we all go through it, but how has it
Sure.
been to figure that out?
I mean, I don't have the answer to that yet. We like the lamps, for example.
Yeah.
We had a good price, and everyone was saying that's too low.
Too low.
And I said, my side of things was that last year, the tables, I priced it at a point where I could wholesale, which didn't make any sense. I didn't know what I was doing.
Right.
I priced the tables, let's say, let's say a table was like $8,000, and I was like, well, if I had to like sell this wholesale, it would be like I would get $4,000. So that's great. But I didn't think of the idea of like, if I want to wholesale something, that's like a lot of work for I'm not selling like 5 at a time, it's just like one piece.
Absolutely.
So that's the mistake that I made last year.
Now the mistake is where, because you should have priced it at a place where you feel comfortable just selling them direct. Yes. And making your margin.
Because it's not a design piece for wholesale. It's not meant to be.
Okay.
Sometimes you look at a piece and you're like, that's too hard to like wholesale. That's like, doesn't make sense.
Agreed.
So for the lamps, like everyone was like, no, that's like too low. And I thought, well, I just want to get them out there.
Good idea. Right.
I want these in like spaces, and want these in people's homes, and to like to know like what am I supposed to do from there?
Yeah.
But for now, I just want them out.
So this brings up something really interesting for me, and I'd love to see your thoughts on it. So you're positioning yourself in a particular market, right? Your lamps being a certain price, the coffee table. We talked about this, like there's different markets, there's different tiers. Which tier do you feel like you want to be hitting currently? How do you want to be seen in terms of that tier? And yeah, like where do you find yourself where do you want to be in that tier?
Yeah.
Because to me, right, it looks to me like art, what you make. And when something looks like art to me, I think it sort of deserves a different tier, deserves the art tier. How do you feel about that?
So within my business, I somehow find myself that I had different tiers, different price points. So like I still do jewelry, which is completely affordable for anyone.
Right.
And then I have like, let's say the lamps are my second tier, or, last year was like the vases was, but I'm not doing vases anymore. And then the lamps, and then we have mirrors and tables. So it keeps going up.
Right.
So what I learned is that I looked at, the people that followed me via social media, or people that were emailing me about pricing. And I saw that some people wanted to buy certain things, but they just couldn't afford at that time, which I'm there. Like that's something that, right. I'm not like my market for like tables. So I found them like buying other things like jewelry instead. And I love the idea of that I can provide something that people can buy right now. And as they get older and they're, getting promotions, like as I'm getting older, we can eventually like afford things that we actually really love and we want to buy. So for me to have those different price points, I find that important right now.
You can build an audience long term, in other words.
And like jewelry is like the best way for me to it's so easy for
You love
some.
it. I remember the first conversation, you were like, I just want to make jewelry.
Right.
I mean,
It's the customer service in jewelry is so easy. And it's so nice because people get so like excited. Like, oh, I just had this instant last week that someone contacted me. I borrowed like earring for this wedding and I broke it and she loves it and I want to order. And I was like, no, you don't have to order. I'll send you. It's fine.
Yeah. That's
And
awesome.
you know, it's just so easy to do that. I can't do that with lamps. That's too hard right now. Yeah.
Well, and I feel like, you know, some of your new mirror pieces start to incorporate the jewelry kind of aspect.
It came from the jewelry.
It came from the jewelry. I mean, they kind of, you know, I'm looking at them now in the space and they kind of resemble jewelry. Which is kind of nice.
And we're incorporating them into vases too, because I have all this leftover chain mail. I was like, we're just gonna drape, like pierce like vases with them. So it kind of happens by like just playing in the studio.
I mean, listen, you've said in interviews that you love Faye Too Good. You know that she's does interior, she does furniture, she does clothing, which is something you also are interested in doing, right? Jumpsuits and things like this, right? Is this one of your pieces or no?
No? Okay. I still need to. We're in the process of making a prototype, but my mom and I are doing like
that's awesome.
Yeah. It'd be fun.
I mean, this is what's been so fascinating to me about, I've only known you for, I guess, I've known your work since Sight Unseen, but I've known you now maybe for 6 months or so. You're hitting, like, you decide to do jewelry, you decide to do clothing, and people are paying attention. It's like, New York Times also called out your fashion stuff, your jewelry as, which is fun. What? Yeah, because you're just sort of doing, you know, whatever feels natural to you, and people seem to be responding to that. How does that feel? Like, you know, it's like, I went through it a little bit at the beginning, you know, but I just sort of charged through. I didn't really try not to pay attention. You just sort of charge through your, whatever it is that you're trying to accomplish. But are you feeling the pressure?
What kind of pressure?
Well, like, look, now you have a business, right? You have these different interests of yours. You know, you have jewelry, fashion, and your furniture. I mean, it has to become sustainable, right? And it is sustainable right now. So, like, there starts to be pressure. Now you have 2 assistants, you said, right? And then it's just going to keep growing from there. And so, where do you feel, you know, yourself at in that regard?
I think the pressure comes more from like what you had asked, like, where do you want to be? Like, what part of the market do you want to be? You know, and I like just recently went with Ian and Valerie to Salon New York, and there are a lot of times like you feel this, the pressure is that a lot of times I think people are saying, this is like where it's at, collectible furniture, like, you know, really well, like high priced pieces. And I went there and I like just remember myself, like I was in love with all the pieces. They're amazing and I'm so curious about how things are made. But there was like this gut feeling that was like, I felt so nervous about being there. And I think the pressure it's from, I don't know this world enough to even think about like if this is where I want to be. You know, like I just like don't know what the people are like. I don't know what the industry is like in that sense. So like when people ask me like, where do you want the business to go? I don't know yet because I haven't got, you know, just started. So I'm really happy where we are now. I just am trying to figure out how to like do things more efficiently so we can play more and like try other things, you know, because everything like so far has been like I just trying things and throwing against the wall and see if it sticks or not. And I've done a lot of embarrassing things in the past. Like I started a lot of different businesses before and it failed every time. But I'm like completely okay with it. I'm okay being embarrassed.
I think you've maybe found your spot now in somewhere, you know.
And maybe it'll change. I don't know. But right now,
you know, when you say that you don't know where you fit in terms of collectible or that sort of world just yet, or you feel uncomfortable around that, do you see yourself as an artist?
Yeah, I don't see that much of a difference between artists and designers. I think designers should learn to be more vocal about their work, more personal. I think coming from, SCAD is a very technical school, and there's a lot of, here's a client, here's the design brief, you know, here's if it's going to be
that was how
successful
the
or not.
assignments were? That's
A lot of, I mean,
Yeah.
a lot of the classes were,
Okay.
we had some more, like, it's very conceptual as well,
okay.
but I think designers are often thinking about like how to solve like a problem and make
Right.
things that sell, which that's a great mindset that artists need to have, like fine artists need to have.
Yeah, true.
But I think there's like, I think today, like it doesn't, you know, it doesn't matter. Like you should learn both sides. Like you should be more vocal and more personal about your work, because that's important today. There are a lot of shit happening out there that, you know, people need to stand up, and also people, we should not be naive about selling our work or like, you know, making a living out of it. So I don't see a lot of difference between the
And
both.
do you feel like that the gateway to that is through social media?
Yes, I think that social media is definitely a window. Like you can, I mean, it doesn't get as personal. Trying to.
I follow you. Obviously, I follow your stories. It feels like you balance Eny the person, you know, your interests, your travel, and your studio life.
Right. I try not to post too much about like, let's say like really personal things like my marriage or, you know.
Yeah.
But I had a time where I was like so like focused on like making sure like everything was like dead on. The story.
Do you mean on social?
Yeah.
Like you wanted it to
like
be
definitely like an
like
aesthetic.
branded.
And I
Yes.
still do. Like I have an app where
do.
I can like, you know, organize my photos. Where I'm like really like anal about like things looking certain ways. But for stories are just so easy.
They're loose, yeah.
Yeah, you just, and people are like, they're gonna see like.
But that's where they get to know you.
Exactly.
Kind of as a person.
It's so nice because you don't have to commit.
Right.
You know what I mean? I mean.
Right. You've got your grid that you end up really aesthetically, you know, organizing, but then you get to be a little. I guess my question is like.
And it's not just like one way, it's like the other way. Like if you,
what do you mean?
If people comment on your work, like you can literally look into your client's like
absolutely
life. You know, it's like a two-way
You had said to me at one point, you were like, you know, Fernanda, you have a different following than I do in terms of your clientele. You know, and it struck me because I was like, is that true? Like who is your audience, you know? Like, what are you finding your client, those people on there are, you know? I just remember, it struck me because I thought, oh yeah, right. As we build, it's not that there's one type of interior design or architecture world, there's several. And they, you know, you've developed an audience maybe that's different than mine or different than other designers, and I was like, right, I didn't really realize that until then, and so you're in tune with your clients because of it as well.
Yeah, so I see that a lot of the people that follow me are either ceramic fanatics, you know, they love pottery, they love anything clay. And then I have a lot of like people in the fashion world.
That's what I was gonna say too, yeah.
Which I saw that and I was like, well, if I have this following, then I'm gonna try to see if I can make something for this market. And also, I mean, and then there's like the interior design crowd. So it's a little bit of everything. I don't know. I
like that you, number one, you know who is your audience.
I mean, you can tell. Like
you can tell. I know.
Especially if you're the one running the social media, I think that's important because it's a way to like understand like who you're working with. Yeah.
Has it helped your sales?
Definitely. I mean, do you sell like a lot through Instagram?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, to us, it's like it's how we do our PR at this point. You know, in a lot of ways.
I don't love like sales through DM messaging. Just because then I have to, that's another channel that I have to keep organized. Totally. Exactly. I'm just like,
but you get them through, you get the DM and then you push them to the email.
I was like, email me please.
That's right. We do the same.
Exactly.
Exactly.
But it's so funny because you think that it feels so casual, but
It's not
If
anymore.
if you're thinking about like interior designers or people who are like planning a project, they're just saving things they like and they're just gonna, it's so easy
And
for
then they
them.
request. That's right.
Yes.
Yeah.
This
It's
should
the
be like an ad
friction.
for Instagram. I mean, it's amazing.
Okay, let's move a little bit from the social media stuff, not away from it, but more so the direct to the consumer. Oh, go ahead. What would
Okay.
you want to say? You want to say, yeah.
Can we just say though,
Sure,
before we move off, because I have a lot of people that I have like friends and like some people that like mention like, oh, just through social media they see like this, you know, business. I always like try to like make a point. I was like, it's a lot more luxurious than you think. A lot of times, like even though it looks like a certain way, it's an amazing tool, but it's by no means like a way for you to compare and like see where you are versus another person. I don't know. It's a
You're talking
wonderful
about for
tool
design, for young designers,
Yeah,
younger people.
for sure.
They're sitting there comparing themselves
To see like, you know, oh, like this business is like very successful because of like these amount of followers or like what they're, you know,
Right.
they're doing. I don't know. It's just I
No,
think
listen, I'd like to squash that kind of thing too. Really, it doesn't really matter the amount of followers you have, right? But if you're engaging with those people
Yes,
or
exactly.
not, that's it.
Yeah.
Like if you have, you know, 2,000 followers, but those people are adamant about your work and that's more important
Right.
at the end of the day. I think you get that, and you
Yeah.
can tell because you don't buy followers, you build everything organically, and it's also, look, you kind of started coming up at a point where, you know, this is the model that everyone wants to
everything is
emulate.
changing, right?
Yeah. And so you naturally knew how to brand. You naturally knew that, oh, like, let me have good photography. You knew all of those things, which has now allowed you to sort of start a company and a brand without too many showrooms or galleries, right? I mean,
Yeah.
and you even have your hesitations even about certain online vendors or this or that, right? So this is all just coming naturally to you, right? It's just like the way that you are operating based on understanding your business and the people buying from you.
The branding definitely comes a little more natural than like pricing or, you know, all of that. Yeah, for sure.
So are you actively looking for showrooms? Are you actively looking for those partnerships?
No, and I didn't even think that you were supposed to go after them.
Oh, really? You just were waiting for them to all come to you?
No,
I mean, which they will.
I haven't even thought.
Have they approached you?
I think from sight unseen, I've had like a couple, and then, I mean, I have like inquiries for like retailing our work.
Sure.
Which I don't wholesale furniture at this point.
Okay.
I just like made a point like we are not wholesaling furniture.
Okay.
For a while.
That's good.
Until I understand a little bit more of like the market and our consumers and everything, you know.
And those retailers are at what sort of price point, you know, like, are they going to be able to hit the like $8,000 table?
Yeah, and I mean, this is a lot with the lamps. I think the lamps are like the pieces that are doing really well. So not gallery wise, I mean, it sounds really what's the word? Compelling? I don't know.
Sure.
It sounds like really attractive to have someone who can be excited about your work and want you to grow. Kind of like a mentor. I mean, they're gonna profit, you're gonna profit, but you're as a collaborative team are trying to create interesting pieces. So that side of like the business of like having a representative.
But is it just because of the stress of like invoicing, doing this, doing that, like handling the client? Is that what's intriguing and compelling about it?
I think it's the human like relationship on my end. The whole idea of like me wanting to work corporate was because I loved the idea of like being in a team and having a good boss. That was like my goal. It's like if I can have like a really good boss so I can learn to be a good boss myself, like that would be amazing. And
because you knew that you eventually would become your own boss.
Well,
sort of like a training
just like,
ground for
you know,
yourself.
as you get promoted, like if you're like a creative director, like you have people, you know, you want to have a good, solid boss to, you know
I just have never heard anyone really say this. Like, to be honest, like
really?
Most people don't leave. Yeah, most artist designers I know, they definitely want to start out somewhere that will help build their reputation or build, you know, but you seem like you've been an entrepreneur for a while. Like you've
Yeah,
been.
and I didn't realize it until later.
I know.
Was like,
like you have the entrepreneurial spirit. You're doing everything direct to consumer. You build your own brand. You've really, you're just sort of doing it.
I also just like don't think that I mind failing in different aspects, like not necessarily like getting sued or like something terrible happening. Of course I get stressed about that. But if like a product doesn't work out, if I say like something on social media, like I'm gonna do this and then it doesn't happen, I was like, I don't care. I mean, I tried, you know, I was like, what am I gonna do about it? So in that aspect, I think it's important for you to like not take it too seriously. I tell everybody, just try it and see what happens. Like what can happen, you know? And in today's world, everybody's like in an instant like subscription and like getting things like now, like they're not gonna remember. Yeah, honestly. Right. So I don't even remember where we were going with that.
I mean, we're talking about a bunch of different stuff. Well, so
the galleries.
The galleries. Yeah. Essentially, it comes back to wanting to work with the gallery system, right. Or if you're really, because if you're building all of these different aspects to your studio, it just seems like you may not need that model. But I'm curious as to where you were about it, you know, just personally, because there is something intriguing and compelling about it. And, you know, then also you have them backing you in terms of the price points, right? Like if you don't know where to go with your prices, they'll be very clear as to where you need to go with your pricing.
I don't know if you're this way, but it's just the idea of like, you know, what you were saying, like, what's your goal? Like a lot of times, like you straight on, like ask me that and I'm like, what? But to me, it always comes down like, I just want to be able to grow, like in all aspects. Like I want to be able to grow as an artist, as a designer. I want to be able to like, you know, create jobs because I'm an immigrant, you know, I'm not a citizen quite yet. And I want to show America what's up. So like, I want to grow and.
Yeah, I love that. I feel exactly the same way. I believe that if you're not growing, you're dying. And so it just artistically as a person, everything. Yeah. So I fully believe in that philosophy as well.
So I think you're right. I think it's possible doing, you know, with the business models that we can create today. But there's something really attractive of having, and maybe that's like through a creative community. Maybe that's like having peers that are alongside, like doing the same thing, and we can challenge each other. But that's like what I like want to be. I want to be challenged. I want to be like, okay, what if you start...
Who's someone that challenges you today?
Right now, I don't have that person.
Now, when you say that, do you mean in your life or people that you look up to, things like that, or?
It's just
like, who does Eny Lee follow? And
I have I have like mentors, and I have like people that I talk to about like business decisions, and like, you know, my husband's like my partner, so we talked about those things. But in terms of like, the creative side, because I haven't been in like basically like coming out of school, like where you're often like being critiqued, you know, and even SCAD, they're like very passive, they're very like soft about critiquing. Okay. From like my Asian like roots is like, no, like more critical. Yeah, let's be honest about
let's
this.
Dig deep. Yeah.
So I kind of miss that. I miss having the other person being like, no, this is shit. Like you should do something. Like, you know, like you should change this or you should try this. Like that's like something that I miss a lot. And like being here in this space alone and being able to create is fun and all, but
you miss that.
Having a second opinion.
You know, this is so funny because I remember when I left school, undergrad, and then more so even in grad school, where you're so used to being critiqued that it was like a breath of fresh air to not be so heavily critiqued right after school.
Yeah.
And then you go into this phase of saying, well, now I kind of need it and miss it. Like today, no one critiques my work.
Yeah.
Right? And it's a little scary because basically everyone that comes to visit, they're just there to support you, to be, oh, I love this or I love that, but you don't get that critical thing anymore. And what I've learned is that you have to just be that for yourself. Like the conversation and the dialogue, and especially in design, is not critical. Like you're not going to read, like New York Times, right? They have their art criticism column, you know, Roberta Smith, and they really dig into artists, you know, what
Yeah.
they're doing. But that doesn't exist in design. And so you
Yeah.
have to be your own.
Because in design, your criticism is if it sells or not. Like that's kind
You
of,
think so?
yeah, like, I mean, because, you know, at the end of the day, is it successful or not? And how is it successful? It's like if it sells or,
You know,
I
I
don't know.
wouldn't want to gauge a person's success on whether the stuff sells or not.
But that's what I'm saying, that design often was in that mindset that I
Yeah.
feel like it needs to be a little more vocal, a little more
I agree.
personal to merge those things, you know, because it shouldn't just be about success in terms of like selling. It should be more effective in
Not
other,
the quality of the design,
Right, exactly.
and maybe what it means or what it's doing.
Exactly. So that's what I mean by like the criticism of design. Like, and I mean, don't get me wrong, even in school, like my, you know, my professors would be like, oh, I don't know about this shape. And I would like fight for it.
Yeah.
I was like very stubborn as well. Like I love like listening to criticism, but also like creating your own judgment and like standing by it. And that's what I mean. Like, I don't mean to like be like, you know, stepped on or anything, but I think there's a healthy balance to be able to talk about your work and not be completely married to, and either defend it or think about whether it needs to be more malleable and change directions. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. I remember you talking to me about this at one point as well, where you're really willing to pivot based on the audience's reaction.
Yeah, and also I get bored really easily.
Yeah, I want to actually talk about that too, because you're willing to stop a series, right, and say sold out. I've seen it on your website where something says sold out. And I was like, oh, wow, okay. So she's willing to sort of, even if it's successful, like let's say these lamps, they're doing very well, right? Let's say you get bored. Are you going to say, okay, I'm done with these lamps and move on to the next? Or
I don't know about the lamps yet, but
Okay.
I definitely got bored of the vases.
Okay.
And I still get inquiries of vases. And I was like, this was like a commission work for a restaurant, and I don't.
So you're willing to say no
Yeah, I'm just like,
for your vision of what you want to be.
Yeah, and like I just don't want to make them.
Cool.
Like I can't.
No, listen,
you know.
I think it's not only smart, I think it's going to keep you growing and evolving versus people being like, oh yeah, the girl that does the the vases or the you know, but it's an interesting move, because if something is successful,
Yeah.
it's very hard to say, oh yeah, I'm going to go ahead and stop that series, and I enjoyed that series and now I'm moving on.
But I think that I know why they're successful, and I don't really quite believe in like why they're.
What? Tell me. What do you mean?
Coming from an interior design background, a lot of times it's nice to just have very simple things that you can put them together and they look good with each other, instead of having a really beautiful piece that can stand on its own. So the vases that I had created, it was designed meant to be tons of them on a shelf against a bar. And, you know, so
that's not how they end up living, though, or is that?
They are.
Okay,
you know, so like the inquiry is like a lot of people want to get them as like a group of all these like vases together. And then sometimes they just want to buy on its own, and I hate them on its own. Like they just like, and they're so boring to make.
They're boring to make.
Yeah, because I have to throw them everything on the wheel, and it's just too much. Yeah.
Well,
but the lamps, I don't know yet. Maybe I don't know if I'm gonna get bored yet or not.
You're still having fun with them.
Because they're so easy to get on it. It's hand building. It's like playing with mud or like making sand castles. It's so easy.
And they're hollow, right? They're just
they're hollow. Okay. Easy meaning like your body is not too constrained, and it's like I can put a podcast on and I can go at it, and then they change directions. I go do something else. Like because I have to wait for them to stiffen up a little bit. Yeah. So it's kind of like a filler.
Yeah, that's nice. Yeah. So you can work on other stuff while these are being made.
Exactly. Yeah.
Something I want to talk about. You brought it up. You know, I didn't think about having this conversation with you during when I was prepping, but you're an immigrant. Mm-hmm. Korean immigrant.
Brazilian.
Oh, Brazilian?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Born and raised, yeah.
Born and raised, but your parents are Korean. Mm-hmm. And now you're here. There's been a lot of attention around women makers, women in general this year. And so, like, is part of you're trying to sort of, you know, take a position and be like, listen, came to this country. I'm able to do this. Do you have thoughts about that? Or how are you feeling about that conversation right now? And is it something you're conscious of? And, you know, that...
I mean, I'm passionate about things that are fucked up and they're happening. Like, you know, and I think everybody should be, honestly, rather like I'm like strong believer like women-owned business. Like I think that's beautiful and everything, but I just like mostly like pay attention of like what's happening at the moment, whether it's like a minority, you know, something's happening to them, or it like doesn't matter who. It doesn't matter if you're you know, white male or like if you're a minority, and it's just if it's happening it sucks because it shouldn't, you know. And obviously there's like an imbalance and I don't believe in that. And it's really great to be in this wave of like women-owned like small businesses, but I just like take one issue at a time. I don't know. Yeah.
So it's not something that you're consciously trying to promote. It's just how you are and the things that you're interested in speaking out about, or
I mean, it's still important. Like, let's say for the business that my mom and I are thinking of creating, I was raised by a single mother, so for her that topic is really important. And I told her, listen, because she's an older generation, I told her it's not about selling a product anymore. It's about selling like a belief, a lifestyle. You know, you have to like have something you're passionate about, because otherwise it's too hard to just sell a product. You're not gonna, you know, want to keep doing that.
And do you feel like that's through stories, through narrative that you create?
Yeah, I think that's like something that I want this to be her project, like as much as it is mine. So her thing was like, I really want to support single mothers, because that's, you know, that's me. And I was like, yes, let's do that, you know. But you think of like a way how we're gonna do that, how we're gonna do it, because that's gonna keep her motivated.
Will you do this under Eny Lee Parker brand, or? Yeah,
so like my jewelry is under this collection called Artist Line, and the clothes will go underneath that too.
But when you speak to the press or whatever, your mom will be there as well as
it'll be like a little family thing.
That's very cool. Yeah. So, and you guys must be very like best friends kind of thing, right?
Yeah, I mean, we couldn't live under the roof because we fight too much.
Oh, really?
But we're like.
So creatively, you're gonna be you'll work together just fine.
Yeah, I know what she's good at, and I was raised by my mom like bringing like 500 leather strings, telling me to like make belts out of it, because we were raised in Brazil.
What, like weaving it?
Or? Yeah, like I.
Well,
grew
no
up,
wonder
like,
your work has turned out the way it has.
She would put me into like factories. I worked at like swap meets in California. Like I had some weird jobs, and I think that's why I'm like totally fine.
All of those influences is why you make the work you make today. Yeah. And you know, I grew up in Mexico. I didn't understand its influence maybe until the last few years of my life. And I've just turned 40, so it's like it takes a while to kind of step back from your own life and see how the influences, how Brazil has influenced you, how, you know, your mom.
For sure.
Yeah. What's next for you?
I think we briefly talked about this, but I had this idea that I've wanted to do of traveling to a place and creating product pieces there using like their resources. So I noticed that I was getting a lot of inquiries from Australia, and you know, shipping and customs is a little crazy. So I was like, what if I just like go there and create everything, you know, because then we would, you know, cut that. So it's
like an artist in residency kind of thing.
Yeah,
where
I'm calling artist in travel.
Oh, cool.
So it'd be like every year we would like, you know, pick a place that we felt like we had strong inquiries, and then I would go there for a month and create. And
that's a great
idea. But we would take all the orders beforehand. Yeah.
This is brilliant.
So right now we're kind of working. I just had a phone call, and I think I might be partnering with like, you know, an interior design company who's going to host me. That way we can really go.
This is great.
Yeah. So I'm really excited. I really hope.
Are you going to document all this? Or just through social? I mean.
Yeah, I think through social, and maybe like just let a couple like press people know. Just because I'll be going. Australia is really far.
Very far.
Yeah.
We have clients there, and we see a lot of stuff from you know, Melbourne and things. But I never thought about this is a great idea.
Yeah, I think it's completely doable. And the idea of using local clay sources.
Oh my God, yeah, that's fantastic.
It's just, there's something really beautiful about,
it's poetic.
Definitely.
It's poetry.
Especially if you think about like, I purchased like something that I really want to get, and that person's coming all the way here to create it.
Yeah,
and I can like,
great. And then you can meet that. Yes, exactly. Dude, this is
we're gonna have like workshops, and we're gonna have like meetings with clients coming. So I'm really hoping that
and you
works
put all
out
this together.
smoothly. Yeah, it's something that I had in the back of my head, and then it didn't click until I was like, oh, I really just want to go to Australia and do this. And then this interior design company who has like an incredible following and
Can you
does
say
like
who it is? Who the company?
I don't know if it's gonna happen
Okay.
yet or not, because
Hey,
we're having our last meeting on Friday.
Okay.
Regardless if it goes through or not, we're still gonna try to make it, even if it's just my end.
Awesome.
But I think it'd be really fun to partner with someone.
Of course.
So they would basically host me to go. So like, you know,
And
we
give
would
you
be
an area to work.
Yeah, they have like a warehouse. So they had the owner, Lucy, she had messaged me on Instagram wanting to host, like, you know, sell them.
Yeah.
And I was like, we don't wholesale pieces. So I think that was like a great like gap. Like we can meet in the middle and do something with that. And I think it's gonna be really fun.
That's
and
incredible.
It's so funny because she also had this space that she's been thinking of doing like similar of what I want to do.
Cool.
Of having artists coming.
Awesome.
So it's like kind of perfect. Yeah.
While you were saying this, I was wondering, do you have a PR firm?
Mm-mm.
Okay.
I do everything.
So this is you figuring all this stuff out, your own strategy. This is great.
Yeah, I have a friend who project managed all of the artwork in the Mercedes Stadium in Atlanta.
Okay.
And he's fantastic. So there's like a lot of stuff that a lot of the kinks that he's gonna help me iron out, because he basically, that's like his job. Like that's what he does.
Dude, I love your spirit, man. It's like, you know, since school, you collaborate with people that know, you know, the photographer or this or that, and you just figure it out on your own and use your community to do it.
Because we have that.
I know.
So it's like,
listen, I know, but I don't think
this is why I moved to New York.
Yeah, which we didn't even talk about, because I'm sure it was a big moment of like, after the momentum had built.
Well, we've been trying to move here for like 3 years, and also at the same time buy a house in Savannah. So it was like a very polar opposite decisions. And it didn't happen until this year. So
I know you've only been here since January of
January, February. Mm-hmm.
So you've been almost 1 year now.
Yeah,
that's incredible.
I know.
You've really done. You've really left a good mark. You know, when I told my team that I was interviewing you, they were just so excited. They're like, we love Eny Lee Parker. And so, you know, number one, I think you're doing awesome. And I'm so glad we got this chance to sit down and chat, because I've been wanting to do this. And I feel like maybe we'll do another one next year, a podcast where we kind of follow up and see what's been happening after Australia, after, you know, you get bored of the lamps or something, see where you are next. But I'm tracking your career. I think you're doing great. And thanks for doing this.
Thank you. Thanks.
All right.